So I was lurking on Reddit and I came across this post by Future Adaptiveness 7297 saying, I don't understand why I suck so much. And it got me a little bit curious. So I watched it. Honestly, it looks like everyone's first naval invasion. And obviously they're asking, you know, for some advice here. And we'll pause and I'll point out some things as we go along. Initially, I was going to say stuff about not spending your PP because it's 38, but I'm pretty sure we use some console here. It's fine to use the console to learn. I totally accept that. It's just I think we can ignore anything at the top and we'll just talk about like what specifically is happening here. So we're starting off here and we have a naval invasion from Germany to Ipswich. The first comment that I would have is Ipswich is not a very big port on the UK. I think it's like level 2 or 3, which is going to give you like 15 supply. So I think here we're probably going to have a little bit of supply issues right off the bat. And I know because I did watch it, but yeah. The second thing here is we have some convoy raiding going on. And I think these are troops because I don't think we've actually had not that much time to go on for supply to be caught. And another thing we're going to want to be paying attention to is the stuff on the side. So we currently have a red air situation in Western Germany and England, and obviously so of course you successfully got a landing, and that's great, and it looks like you are holding it. Instantly the French are raiding. So you have the UK and now the French. So what this tells me is obviously you're not convoy escorting, because we don't see any German response at all. They're just getting hit. So what you'd want to do in a situation like this is when you do a naval invasion, you probably have your fleet on strike force, which is how you got supremacy, which is fine. But when you start, when the troops start going, you want to switch them over to naval invasion support right off the bat, and then just keep an eye on the ships with your main navy. If you in a situation like this where you're playing against the UK and you're Germany, you're gonna have a smaller navy. And if they engage you, you will want to retreat right away. But yeah, naval invasion support right off the bat. You get shore bombardment bonuses. They'll also escort your units. And that just gives them a chance to get away and to actually land and not take any damage. After you've made a landing like this, what you're going to want to do is take your main fleet and put that in either keep it at shore here if you're confident that you're bigger than them and they're not going to engage you, or if they do, it doesn't matter. Or in Germany's case, if they're bigger, you're going to want to put them back in port and get destroyers. Pull some destroyers off, even as few as like 20 destroyers in the situation here. Split them up and put them on convoy escort. So on convoy escort, what would happen is these subs, they'll run away if they see destroyers with the AI, because they never put it on like always engage. So essentially, it would give your convoys a chance to run away. And if they're sinking convoys, supply convoys in particular, you lose a percentage of the supply that you would get to that port, and it takes like a month to fix. So even if you do fix a situation, you're gonna have if you lose 20% of your supply, you'll have 80% supply in that region until the next cycle where it switches over. So it is a problem. So we have 5 units. With 5 units on Ipswich, not a problem. So this port will give you around 15 supply. And then each one of these it's probably going to be like 0.3 or 0.5 or whatever. So you're not stacking supply too much. So it looks like you landed. They're moving off. That's good. You want to get off the beach. I would micro a couple units here. All right. So see how you're getting rated here. Now we can look over at the strength and top left here. So it looks like you actually took some damage. Your tanks got damaged. Another big problem is you can now see all these little red crates, and this is a huge problem. So like I said, Ipswich is a small port. And you don't want to overstack what it can support. So it can support around, I'm going to say 15 supply. It might not actually be that number, but it'll be something near that. Each one of these your infantry is probably going to be around 0.3 to 0.5. And then your tanks will probably be anywhere from like 1 to 3. In this situation, you could probably have 20, maybe 30 infantry, or, 10 to 15 tanks. You have a situation here where you have 35. So you're definitely overstacking. On top of that, you're getting raided. So you're getting basically no supply to these units. And so in the beginning, that's not going to be a huge issue because your stats will it'll be like -1 attack and -5 breakthrough, which isn't huge, but that compounds and it'll increase very quickly. So I see you're landing. You're taking your time to move. You want to when you land, you want to micro them off just to make sure they're going quickly. I do want to say, I'm going to point out again, June 30th as a day to invade is actually a really good time. Like your overall strategy, this overall strategy is amazing because the UK AI doesn't defend their island very well until like 1940. So hitting them early is actually a really good strategy. But we obviously have some other problems here. So you're setting up, you got to pause. That's great. You're setting up some front lines. That's fine. When you do invasions like this, a little bit of micro can go a long way. Yeah, so you're on pausing for speed and they're just blitzing. And this port here is actually really good. This one here is, I think, a level 10, so just outside of London. So if you actually got some time, if you weren't getting raided here, this actually would probably all tick over. So yeah, and then here's another thing. You have a massive little breakthrough here. You're playing a little way too quickly with the invasion. I'd bring it down to 2 or 3 speed. When you have a situation like this where you break through, you could run these motorized around behind them. And if you like ran down here and took Portsmouth, the AI would get really confused and probably pull out to Dover. Or, you know, they at the very least, they would shuffle. So in this situation where even if you have them on, and I would take these units and I would unassign them. There is another way to manually micro units. I'll show you that here, just in another clip. All right, so if you want to manually micro them but still get some planning, this is what you would do. You take the field marshal line. You want to draw it along the whole front, and while holding down shift. Then we're going to draw a line, and now you have an order. These are technically assigned to it, but what we can do here now is we can put them on a garrison order and put the general on a garrison order in somewhere where you can't access. So this could be any neutral territory, but the easiest spot is the Sahara. Just plop it in the Sahara behind this red line. Now, when we unpause, they will be getting planning, but they're not going to be shuffling. So even though it's on this whole line here, they're not trying to shuffle down, and we can get planning here. And this is just a good way to do it. Technically, it is considered, it is an exploit, but it's considered like an exploit that is acceptable. You'll never have it banned in a situation where it's like, it'll never be banned in a multiplayer game. Just, you know, some people think it's a little cheesy. It's not. Honestly, Paradox should just add this to the game because the frontline mechanic, it doesn't always work. So alternatively, just unassigning them just right here. So if they were assigned to an order, just unassigning them. We'll do the same thing, you just won't get planning. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. But you just want to micro breakthroughs like this and pin things. Of course, we still have another problem, which is I'm gonna talk about in a second. But you have really bad air, right? So we open up a thing here. So you're opening up a battle screen and you're looking at the stats, and the stats are fine. You know, you've got a multiple combat here. You've got some out of supply. This isn't bad for infantry, like, you know, whatever, right? They're attacking. They've got no breakthrough. The big issue here is up here. They have enemy supremacy, air supremacy, and they're obviously doing cast damage to you. You're taking damage. You're running into them, and I know you're looking at the stats. We can talk a little bit about this. They shouldn't have intel advantage over you. So if you see at the top there, you have an extra spy. One thing I would do is if you're going to do an invasion, make sure you put spies in, because you can reduce the enemy entrenchment. Yeah, that they should just not have intel advantage on you if you do spies well. Yeah, especially with the UK. Like, you should be spying on the UK and doing all that because it helps with the air exchanges. It helps with obviously these stats. They shouldn't have air support. You should have your air up, and you should have more air than them if you're going to do an invasion. At the very least, yellow. So they shouldn't be getting that air support one. Not much you can do about their country bonus. That's just going to come with their like chief of army and a few things like that. But yeah, you can actually get their stats modified really low. And obviously get yours modified positively. So it does look like you're winning, right? So honestly, I would take this point here, and it looks like really you should just turn off battle plan. The battle plan's not really helping you here, because like you got units cycling out here. This guy here is losing some on the port by. You kind of got a problem here where you need to org up. You're losing, like, you've got way too many units on this one tile. This is just a battle plan thing, right? Where they're just kind of bunched up because they're trying to, like, I don't know what they're doing, but you can see here in the south, the supply issues fixed itself. And that's largely because you've got that port. You're going to start to lose here. So these units here just got deorged. They got cast really hard, right? Like, I can tell they're being cast because there's no way that the infantry did this, because it's, look, you're getting attacked from this one tile across a river. That's not infantry doing that damage. That's the cast. So you lose this tile, and then you get reinforced memed here. And that's because you just had so much stacked on one tile that you need to move that, spread that out a little bit. And also, like, you don't have to always attack. You know, you can pause. All right, so now you're just getting pushed back. You just have way too much stuff on one tile. None of this can get supply in the middle here. And, you know, no supply means no stats, no recovery. Yeah, okay. And then this is the big thing that I wanted to talk about. I kept bringing up air. You have some issues with the air. So you got to see these circles. These circles actually mean something. And there's another really big problem for every new player. And if you're ever in an airport and this number goes red, where it's 4,300 out of 600, that's a problem. And it's a problem even if it's by a couple planes. It scales very quickly, and you never, ever, ever want to overstack airports. The biggest problem you have is overstacking and range. So if you were to actually take these units down to 1,000 and this one down to 600, and you've also got 4K slots in the mainland. Now you are overstacking supply with the infantry, but if you had fewer units on the mainland and you brought 4,000 over, both a mix of fighters, maybe like, you know, 3,000 fighters, 1,000 casts. 1,000 casts is going to be way more than you'd actually even need for this, and bring this number down to the capacity of the airport. Now, airplanes do take up supply. About 2 air wings is about the equivalent of an infantry division. So, like, you can bring planes over. Bringing 4,000 would be possible with this second port. It is hard to think about these things and keep it in mind when you're playing. You know, just making sure that they're supplied, are not overstacked, and they have the range. So this circle is another big problem. Now, you do have some long range attacks, and these tactical bombs would, in theory, get into battle if you had yellow air. You need about 40%. So just another point here, they will get into the battle. The problem is that you do want to cover the entire air zone. So if you're only covering half the air zone here, in the case of these tactical bombers, your air mission efficiency scales based on the amount of the air zone that you cover. So you do want the circle to cover the entire air zone. So in this case, it's southern England. They will get into the battle. It does scale. So at 50%, it's not ideal, but it's still, you know, useful to have CAS in this situation, or to have ground support. But ideally you want to move them closer. Same thing with fighters. Fighters you want to have covering the entire air zone. That's where you want to do most of your exchanges. And especially when you're grinding down their air, you want to do it in situations where you have coverage of the full air zone. So typically people like to cap France first. I like to cap France before taking on the UK, simply because in northern France, just south of Calais here, there's a couple really good airports, and you can cover the entire English Channel. And if you challenge them over the English Channel, the UK will put up planes, and you can grind down their air force so that they've only got a few hundred planes before you invade. And then when you invade, even if you do run out of range here and you have not ideal situations where it's like half the zone is covered, they can't challenge you, and you can just push up through. Yeah, so essentially what you should have is you should have all of your tax in this one here, moved your fighters over, and with fewer units. And if you can get yellow or green air in the south, you just have a way easier time. Yeah, and so here you're obviously losing. You're constantly cycling into them. You have no none of your units are getting a second to reorg up because you're constantly attacking into them. And then, you know, they just, like that battle there, it looked like you have so much against their one little puny unit. But it doesn't matter, because if you get deorged because of the cast. And then same situation here, whatever's in this battle is losing org very quickly, and then you're just getting kicked out. Yep. And now you're stacking even more on a few tiles, and then once you lose this port down here, it's over. Yeah, so you have way too much in this pocket now. Like this almost would have been good enough if you were challenging their supply. Like here you've got 47 convoys getting raided. Basically that's just gonna mean you have nothing in there. There is local supply and stuff too. Like when you got London, you would have gotten a little bit of supply, but it's just not enough for an army this big. And then at this point you want to pull out. Yeah. And oh, here's another thing. If you have a navy stops and repairs on the place you're invading, move it, because this is sucking up supply too. And like 8 ships it's not a huge deal, but sometimes you'll have 100, 200, and it can just nuke an invasion. So like when you got to the point where you had these 4 tiles, you should have started pulling them out. Yeah. And then of course we can see here you tried to spawn in some stuff, anti-air, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and so you're looking at England. It's not. They're not even that strong, honestly. It's their air. They've barely anything in the UK itself. And you had more air than the AI would at this point. I'm positive. I'm positive that you had more air. So that was the two big things that killed you, was the supply in this area not supporting your convoys through convoy escort, and then obviously the air stuff.